Hello, I am Precious Strictly. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with outrage as national power grid collapses twice in 6 hours. Right, it says the generation drops 93.5% to 273 megawatts. Minister of Power confirms collapse. TCN blames fire incident at Jebba Line. TCN orders efforts not sufficient, and that's coming from Geotechnics boss. $7.5 billion loan failed to halt collapses. Experts call for probe. On page 8, palliatives address root of poverty, not symptoms. Catholic bishop tell federal government. And at police IG strategic meeting, we can see a photo story showing Inspector General of Police Mr. Kayode Egbetukun and others. Court nullifies Kaduna government's banishment of monarch. Stories above. CBN drives investment for rehabilitation of moribund ports. Olowori ends protest by Shekiris. One party states will resist APC's plots, and that's coming from PDP Labour Party. Farmers header clashes. Committee recommends the creation of livestock ministry. Delta rep seat. Appeal court sacks Elumelu declares Labour Party candidate winner. And on page 9, illegal toll. IGP orders the CPS dismantle unauthorized checkpoints, arrest violators. Lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, we have Tinubu sacks FIRS boss Mohammed Nami, names Adedeji new chairman. All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with DHQ police turn heat on oil thieves, economic saboteurs. The writer says 1 million liters of stolen crude seized in 1 week. IG orders the clampdown on firearm production. How to prevent another national grid collapse. Tinubu will create wealth for all Nigerians. The writer says President Hale advised Wike for hitting the ground running as FCT minister. Stories above. We won't allow one party rule, says the PDP. Makinde appoints 29-year-old as commissioner. Governors get federal government's push on mass food production. Adedeji replaced Nami as FIRS chair. All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Nigeria's debt jumped by 75% in 3 months, hit 87 trillion naira. How CBN loans to federal government, new debt, promissory notes raised public debt by 37 trillion naira between April and June. Tinubu's reform will improve debt sustainability. DMO assures Nigerians as latest figure overshoots agency projection by 10 trillion naira. Tinubu promises to tackle poverty, complete East-West Road. NURTW President 21 others arrested for alleged killing. Alake has provided qualitative leadership for Egba. That's coming from Anglican Primate. You can see that on page 26. Stories above. Electricity consumer slam. Federal government over power grid collapse. Manufactured goods imports gobs $6.7 billion in 6 months, and that's coming from a report. Tinubu orders Nami's retirement, appoint Adedeji FIRS chair, and that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chikudi, and joining me to talk about the story on Catholic bishop telling federal government to address the root of poverty, not the symptoms, is our correspondent, Luminous Janamike. Hello, Mr. Luminous, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello.
All right,
Precious, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Can you go ahead with the story?
Okay, the story came from a communique issued yesterday night by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria. They've been having their second plenary of 2023 in Abuja. They started on the 7th and ended yesterday. So the story was part of the resolutions, call to actions the Catholic bishops all over the country made to the federal government yesterday. The fuel subsidy was removed from fuel. There has been inflation. There has been the naira has lost value and all those things. Those things that create poverty in the nation. So the bishops now are still calling on the federal government to do something. Quite all right. They acknowledge that the federal government has made some efforts, has budgeted some money, and then for palliatives to help cushion the effect of the hardship in the land. But the bishops are arguing. They are saying that when you distribute palliatives and you don't really go to the root cause of the hardship in the land, people will you've not really solved the problem. They will still eat today, but they will go hungry tomorrow. So that's what the bishops are basically saying. And not just that, they are also talking about insecurity. They also talked about moral retrogression in the country. And they also talked about the post-election litigation, post-presidential election litigation, urging the Supreme Court to be impartial, to not play politics and save the nation. So basically, that's what the story is.
All right, thank you so much, Luminous, for that report.
All right, thank you, Precious.
All right, moving on to our next correspondent is Mr. Odeme Akpan. Mr. Odeme, can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you.
All right, we would like you to, share your report on the national power grid collapse. It collapsed twice in 6 hours. Tell us more on that.
Yes, the national grid was disrupted in the early morning of yesterday when the system collapsed, meaning that there was no power supply anywhere in Nigeria. The authorities have been intervening in the past few hours, and when I look at the available data this morning, the transmission company of Nigeria was able to recover over 1,000 megawatts back to the national grid. Everybody's working now in the industry. There's a lot of consultation, moving of personnel to different locations. So there's hope that the situation will improve by the end of today. But it's very sad that this is happening to a country of over 200 million people, and that we should be debating and discussing how to restore 4,000 megawatts back to the national grid. It is very shameful for Nigeria to claim to be the giant of Africa, and yet we cannot even provide power to our people. Many individuals, many households, many organizations have suffered a lot of untold hardship as a result of this.
All right. According to the report, you saw that in 2022, the grid collapsed like 7 times, with the federal government, promising to end the constant power grid instability. Can you tell us more?
It has always been like this. Nigeria, we have been living with the chronic system collapse for several years, as old as Nigeria itself. And different governments have been preaching and saying they will do this and they will do that. And by the time the administration is over, the problem will persist. And in my conversations with many experts yesterday, they said that we have not been doing the right things, that a lot of investments will need to be made into key facilities to increase the capacity of the country and then stabilize supply to a point where we cannot have any system collapse anymore. Because what happens at this time is that you cannot possibly increase generation to, let's say, 6,000 megawatts, because the system cannot take it. Power is a perishable product, meaning that as you generate the power, there should be equally the capacity to take to transmit it, and there should also be facilities too to distribute it. But if the generators are generating the power, let's say up to 10,000 megawatts, and there's no capacity to transmit it and deliver it to the consumers immediately, this can lead to chronic system collapse. So we need to be able to boost our capacity to a point that whatever capacity we generate, we should be able to transmit it, we should be able to deliver it to consumers. Otherwise, because each of those segments along the value chain, they have to work together. So we need a lot of resources, and it is doubtful whether past governments have been using the money properly. Because if you look at the volumes of money injected into the power sector over the years, it is very alarming, and yet Nigeria has no value for it.
All right. In terms of solution, of course, you spoke about some experts that are saying that we should start to focus our attention on renewables. What other solutions do you think that the federal government should be looking at this point?
In terms of permanent solution, the government will need to involve the right people, the experts. There are many experts in the country, but some of them are idle, they have not been utilized. So the government need to use the right people, use the right resources, the equipment, mobilize everybody to where they can fix the problem. And they need to be disciplined. They need to be transparent. We need to ensure that whatever money is put aside to stabilize operations is properly utilized. Otherwise, no matter how much you put into the whole system, you will still have the problem, because you wouldn't be able to ensure that our little resources is properly utilized to rectify the situation. Nigeria, we have been experiencing system collapse for many years. And every time the government of the day will say, we are working on it, we are doing this, and we are doing that, or we intend to do this. Why has system collapse become a chronic problem in Nigeria? These are the questions those involved in these locations, those involved in the system should answer. They should tell the present government the truth. Because from all indications, the Tinubu government seems to be serious in ensuring that this problem is solved forever. You can see with the level of appointment and close monitoring. The president has even been traveling from one destination to another. But we need to ensure that proper steps are being taken and then implemented on record time. Because Nigerians cannot afford to wait anymore.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Odeme, for that report. All right, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And this morning, Mrs. is speaking. She says, I said food will be ready in 30 minutes. You said your stomach is making some noise. So, and Mr. says, you are taking too long in the kitchen. Now I understand what people mean when they say empty vessel makes the most noise. Are you sure Mr. wants to really eat this food? Because how can you how can you be speaking to your wife like that? But Mr. and Mrs. They always have a way, they always come for each other. It's their own way of banter. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. Find out today's stories. Go to our website www.vanguardangel.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and make sure you have a fabulous